Hey guys. Okay, so when it comes to houses in the traditional building character, aka TBC overlay, there is an exemption that allows you to remove post-1946 components. As a result, as a town planner, I spent a bucket load of my day analysing proposals and analysing plans, trying to work out what components of the demolition are pre- and post-1946, aka what's assessable and what's not assessable. So, in this week's video, I thought I'd share with you my top 5 tips or ways that I tend to approach this process. So hopefully you guys can learn from what I do. So the very first thing I do is I go to Interactive Mapping, I search for the property, and then I jump between the 1946 aerial photo and the most recent aerial photo. So search the property and just click between those two different layers and essentially play spot the difference. Now obviously that only helps when we're looking at stuff that would be visible from above. Now the second thing I do is I go searching for the detail plans. Now I mentioned these a few weeks ago, I think it was, when I was talking about the sewage related resources. So if your detail plan happens to be done prior to 1946, then there is a very good chance you're going to be able to see outlines of verandas, outlines of water tanks, outlines of stove resources. Like, the amount of detail on these plans still blows my mind. So yeah, you can dig up that resource and try and compare it to the most recent proposal plan, so the existing floor plan. What I often do is I get the two images, not even just side by side. I make one transparent and overlay it over the top of the other one so you can see through and try and work out where the lines line up. And yeah, you can basically spot the difference from there. Now, the next thing I do is I go to Corley Explorer. Now, I swear I've done a video on this topic before, but I was having a quick look this morning before I ran out the door and I couldn't find one. So I think next week's video is probably going to be on Corley Explorer. But long story short, you can go to the Corley Explorer website, search for your property, and if you're really, really lucky, you'll get a photo from 1960s or 1970s that you can compare to the recent Street View photo. Really, really lucky. I just stress that. The success rate with Corley Explorer is very low, but if you do get a hit there, it is an awesome resource. Now, the next thing I do is I go to Google's Street View timeline feature. Bit of a mouthful there, Street View timeline feature. Now, I did find a video that I recorded a few years ago on this one, so I'll link it below in case you guys want to go back and watch and learn how to use that resource. But yeah, go back in time and see if there's been any recent modifications, which I can then use to help me prove that the work I'm looking at is not original and post-1946. Now, the final thing I do is I go and look at realestate.com photos, client photos, or I get out on site and I analyze what's in front of me. Now, when it comes to analyzing what's in front of me, there's two key things that I'm looking for. Firstly, when I'm looking at this house, is there anything that just doesn't fit in, doesn't look right? So for example, if I've got a house that's a pre-1911 structure and I know it's pre-1911 and I see some casement windows, so they're the windows that pop out like that as opposed to going up and down, the sash windows. If I see casements, I'm like, damn, that is 1920s or 30s. Obviously, you guys are sitting there going, 20s and 30s predates 46. Yes, but odds are most work in Brisbane has been done post-1946 because we didn't need to or didn't choose to expand our living standards and our accommodation and all that sort of stuff until after the Second World War. So yes, definitely some extensions happened prior to 1946. But if you're going to pick one side or the other, odds are 1946 or after is when it occurred. So yeah, if I see casements on a house that I know is pre-1911, I'm like, that is not original, and odds are it's post-46. And I think the thing to stress here is, with all of this stuff, with any house dating stuff, you need to understand most of the time you're not looking for a direct hit. What you're looking for is a puzzle piece that you can then add to another bit of information and you can layer it all together and come up with the full picture that way. So yeah, looking for something that's a bit odd that you go, that shouldn't be there. Next thing I'm looking for is differences in terms of proportions, of profiles, of styles of materials, construction methodologies, all of that sort of stuff. So this is where I get my true detective geek on. So I'm going around looking at things like windows. So if you've got sash windows at the front and sash windows at the rear, are they the exact same sash windows? Were they all ordered and installed at the very beginning at the same time? Or were they constructed in the same way at the very beginning? So I did a video, I don't know, it was a couple of years ago now, where I actually looked at some sash windows and talked through how I analysed the proportions of the timber bits and all that sort of stuff. So again, I'll link that below if you want to go and learn more about that. Go check that video out. But yeah, go through, check the proportions, so they're all exactly the same. Check the profile of the boards. So have you got some boards on the house that are really weathered? They've had like 100 years of rain and wind going against them. Or are they really crisp, clean, brand new boards? Now you need to account for the fact that different facades of the house are going to have, or houses are going to have different levels of exposure. So if you're looking one facade and it's just open to the elements, it's the western side of the house, it's going to be a little bit more worn than the other side of the house that's potentially sheltered by a neighbouring dwelling or trees and all of that sort of stuff. So there is a bit of variation you need to account for. But generally speaking, you're looking for the same boards in terms of height, profile, extent of wear and tear, all of that sort of stuff. The other thing I'm looking for is like, is there join marks? So can you clearly see someone's come in and cut the side of the house or the rear of the house off and pushed the new addition in that way? They're probably the key things I'm looking for. Oh, timber floors. I love to get under the house and analyse the subfloor structure and the alignment of the boards, the width of the floorboards, the cut marks on the boards, all of this sort of stuff. And again, it's a puzzle game. You're putting all the puzzle pieces together to try and tell the story, let's just say. Now, those are the 5 key steps, or 5 first steps that I take when it comes to trying to work out what components on a dwelling are pre and post 1946. There is a bucket load of other steps you can take. Like, we haven't even talked today about the fact that you can go to Development Eye and look for recent approvals that may have already analysed this stuff. Very low chance of success, but it's definitely a resource that I tap into. Or like Google Earth, and I'm not talking about the Google Street View, this is Google Earth. You can go into the timeline feature there, and sometimes some of the aerial photos are taken on a little bit of an angle, and you can zoom right in and go, oh, I can just make out a window there type thing. So there's a heap of other resources like that that you can tap into to try and work out whether something's pre or post 1946. But in my experience, those first 5 steps that I talked through, they're going to give you the biggest bang for buck, let's just say, and you have the highest chance of success with those ones. Okay, I think that covers off everything I want to talk about today. As I always like to say, until next time, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got 3. Number 1, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number 2, Brisbane town planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number 3, what was my number 3? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all.